Hi everyone, Christina here. Welcome to another video at my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be diving back into my Capsule Papercrafting Challenge for August, and I'm going to be working on, I think this is card 4, and I'm just going to jump right in here and make a card. So let's get going. I'm starting out with a feathery stencil from Altenew, and I'm going to be making a 5x7 card. So I'm going to cut down some Neenah Classic Crest Silver White cardstock to 4x6. On my final card, I will trim it down a little bit even smaller because this stencil is only 6 inches wide and it does have a little bit of that design taken up by the border. You'll see what I mean in a minute. I don't have washi tape or any low-tack tape to use on this project today, so I just took some regular painter's tape and I put it on the back of my hand, and that takes away some of the tackiness. So I taped the stencil from the back of the project, from the back of the paper, to hold it in place. Initially, I thought that would be enough to keep everything in place, but once I get into the blending, you'll see what happens. I'm using the Pink and Main Ergonomic blender brushes today. I have the big ones and I also have the minis. I thought I might need the minis as well, but I ended up only using the 2 larger ones. Now, eventually I'll be taking a greeting from the Greetings Mix 2 stamp set from Simon Says Stamp, and I just wanted to look at it over this pattern, kind of give myself a goal for how I want this to look. I have 3 colors of ink picked out at this point. The one I'm going to be using first is Peacock. And I was kind of trying to figure out how I needed to add ink to these blender brushes using a mini ink cube because I had never used these before. I've used the ergonomic blender brushes just very briefly when I was at a trade show, but not on a full project like this. Pretty quickly, I realized that this stencil has a lot of wide open areas, and because of that, blending over the top like this really moves those big areas around. Now, if I had access to everything in my crafter instead of just what's in my capsule crafting collection, I would grab some pixie spray, which is a spray that you put on the back of your stencil. You let it dry and then you can press it down onto your project. And even for stencils like this where, the little pieces tend to move, the pixie spray is just enough adhesive to keep it in place without harming your cardstock when you peel it off later. So I used 2 colors of green. I thought I might use Oceanside, but it was really close to Peacock. So I swapped it out for Clover, and I also used Sprout. So I'm going to peel this up, and you can see that center area. It looks kind of almost blurry, and that's because the stencil was moving around. After the first initial blending with the stencil, I added the same exact colors over each of these areas just to give a little bit of color to the white design. I didn't want the white to be such a stark contrast, so I just added a little bit of additional blending over these areas. This is also the point when I realized that holding the blender brush like this, almost like how you grasp a doorknob to open, was a little bit easier than how I was holding it before. So in order to keep these blender brushes organized, I decided to put a little tape on top. One says blue, and I'm going to have the other say green. And that's just so I know what colors I've used on these before I give them a thorough washing. You can switch between colors later, but for now I thought I would just put the colors on just in case I blend with blues and greens later. So I trimmed it down. So I've got my basic ink blended panel now. I'm going to heat emboss my greeting. And this ink looked like it was going to take a little time to dry, so I thought it would be smart to test it before I actually go into the stamping and heat embossing. So I'm just sprinkling on some embossing powder, and sure enough, that ink was definitely not dry. I'm glad I tested it because I was able to just brush off that embossing powder and then use a heat tool to speed along the drying process. So this is going to heat set, not really heat set, but dry all of the inks that I blended over top of that stencil. And then I tested it one more time, and this embossing powder just slides right off. So that's how I know that this paper is ready for some heat embossing. I used my Misty Stamp Positioning Tool and my greeting from the Greetings Mix 2 stamp set, along with the clear embossing ink from Simon, which I'm really, really loving. I love how juicy this ink pad is. It's been great to work with. So I stamped that down onto my ink blended panel, and then I sprinkled on some Brutus Monroe Alabaster embossing powder. This goes on so beautifully, and because I took the time to make sure that ink area was dry, I didn't have any embossing powder sticking to areas where I didn't want it. I hit that with my heat tool until all the embossing powder was smooth and melted, and then I decided I wanted a little bit of an organic border around the edge of my panel. So I just ran my embossing ink pad over those edges, dipped the edges in my embossing powder, and for areas that got a little bit thick, I just used a dry paintbrush to wipe away some of that embossing powder. It also gives it a little bit more of a rustic, kind of organic edge. I hit that with my heat tool until it was melted, and the embossing powder on the edge of the paper like this tends to heat up very, very quickly. So if you do this at home, just remember that you don't need to heat it up too long. For my card base, I thought it'd be fun to pick out a colored cardstock. So I'm going to go through some options here. I really love it on this light gray. I also love it on the darker gray. But eventually I decided to go with this midnight cardstock. It's a nice navy. So I trimmed that down to 10 inches wide by 5 inches tall to create a side folding 5x7 card. Used my score buddy to score that at 5 inches. I had to rotate it and go from each side because my cardstock was pretty tall for that mini scoreboard. And then I put some foam adhesive on the back of my panel and pressed that down onto my card front. Now at this point, I thought I was done, but I thought, you know what? It needs something. It's missing something at the bottom. So I decided to create a gold heart. I did that by taking my Altenew metallic watercolor set and doing a gold watercolor on some black watercolor paper. I think it just really looks better on top of a dark surface as opposed to a white surface. I let that dry, sketched out a little heart, and then cut it out with some scissors. I also adhered the heart using a little tiny bit of foam tape. So that's going to finish up the card. You definitely don't have to add this heart at the end here, but I thought it just added a little bit of sparkle, a little bit of metallic. And I think in hindsight, I probably would have done that white organic edge in the gold as well. I would have just painted on with my brush, but here we are. I hope you guys enjoyed my 4th card in my Capsule Paper Crafting Challenge. This one was really fun. I enjoyed it, and I really love breaking out those inks and doing a little ink blending. I thought it was a really fun idea. So on Instagram, just last night actually, when I'm filming this, just last night, I asked a bunch of you, how has card making impacted your life? And I wanted to just read a few of those right now. I think it's really amazing to see stories from fellow card makers and just see how we feel about card making in general and how it affects us and those around us. So I've got them on my phone right here. I'm going to bring it up. Okay, this one is from Siobhan. I think that's how she says her name. And she wrote, "It's no secret that card making is a therapy second to none. It's hard to understand if you're not a crafter of some sort. Some 30 years ago, a tiny shop called Stamp-A-Mania opened in a local mall, and I was hooked almost instantly." We've all been there. "Product was mostly imported and therefore expensive. It's way worse now. But that wasn't going to stop me. I made the most simplistic cards for friends and family who, for the most part, appreciated the sentiment, but that was about it. Luckily, the process is more valuable to me than my recipients' responses. 5 years ago, my precious mom-in-law passed away after getting choked up, after suffering with lung cancer for about 7 months. In that time, she allocated her special possessions to whom she wanted while she still could. It was heartbreaking for us. I'm very soft-hearted. I cried everything. It was heartbreaking for us, but gave her a sense of purpose and joy. A week or two after her earthly departure, I was handed an old, rather weathered folder. I had never seen it before, and inside, safely tucked into each sleeve, was just about every card I had made for her. Are anyone else's emotions like just so on the surface these days? It's crazy. Every card I had made for her and my late father-in-law, spanning almost 25 years. She had treasured every one, and judging by the state of the folder, she looked at them regularly. I tell myself that it was something she wanted to hold on to until the very end. I just wish I had known that she had had them all. Can't you tell how that made me feel? Oh my gosh. Okay, so all of these messages that you guys sent me, there were so many more. They were just as heartfelt and emotional. I just wanted to share that with you guys. Sometimes, especially, you know, if you find yourself in a position where this card making thing can become an income maker for you, like I did years ago, sometimes you can lose the why of what you do. And you can kind of flounder a little bit. But hearing stories like this just drives home why we do what we do. It's about connection with others and connection with ourselves. So many said that they enjoy card making as a form of therapy. I totally agree with that. Anyway, I want you guys to go and make a card, make it purposeful, make it meaningful, have it be part of your why today. And thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys in another video very soon.